And welcome to Get Valiant episode number 104. I'm Eric Baumgart, and we're happy to be here with you. No, I don't know, man. I get shit for how we introduce these episodes, and I don't know what to
It's cool. Hi, I'm Josh. I'm
do.
the other half of this dynamic duo that is the Get Valiant podcasting team.
You're
Coming
listening
at
to
you from
Get
a nice,
Valiant 104.
chilly Salt Lake City, where it's incredibly cold on my part.
What's cold exactly?
Well, it's in the 30s, so I know like there where you live, it's a little bit colder.
It actually was like in the 40s or 50s today, so it was pretty impressive. It was
Oh,
amazing.
that's nice. It's probably pretty cold out right now here.
Yeah. Oh man.
We can't all live in balmy Minnesota, okay?
Yeah. You wish, everyone wishes that they could live here in the wonderful state of Minnesota with all of
Yeah.
our lakes. That's like the one thing we have. Oh, in the Mall of America. So, I mean,
You have the Timberwolves. Come on,
yeah.
the Twins, the Vikings.
Yeah, because those are all such phenomenal teams. Remember that one time the Twins won something back in the
I
early
I
90s?
I do remember when the Twins won something. Kirby Puckett. I remember him.
Jason said only Prince, but we don't even have Prince anymore, dude.
He pieced out.
I know. And that was a serious, like, statewide tragedy when
Was
that
it really?
happened. Oh, it was a big deal. It was a really big deal to Minnesotans when Prince died.
Wow.
That was a much bigger deal than when Bob Dylan goes. Nobody's gonna care,
I'm not gonna care.
right?
I
Um,
only I only slightly cared when Prince died. I was never really much of a fan of his music, but like I could understand like the appeal of it a little bit. I just do not like Bob Dylan. So
yeah, I'm not really a Bob Dylan fan, and I'm not like somebody who listens to Prince albums all the time, but I do have a lot of respect for him as a musician. And growing up in Minnesota, I mean, growing up in Minnesota in the late 80s, early 90s, I mean, yeah, Prince was a really big deal.
yeah.
But I suppose we could just talk about Prince this whole time. That would be fun.
Can we?
Yeah, absolutely. No, so there's not a whole lot of like new news or anything. I know we have over a year to wait, but I just keep hoping that we're gonna get some kind of Bloodshot movie stuff. But I'm sure that'll be like next summer by the time we start seeing actual like images, much less trailers.
Yeah, probably like another like I don't know, not a year, definitely the summer. I think like San Diego Comic Con, they might reveal something because that's a big place to do it. Get a lot of hype behind the movie. It can happen.
Yeah, we'll see. Time will
That's what
tell.
that's what I say. That's when I say they're going to reveal some information on it, like a trailer, teaser trailer.
That I'm gonna lose my shit, just so everybody knows. Um, so we do have two books that we can review today. That would be Ninja K number 13, the penultimate issue, and Bloodshot Rising Spirit number 1. So definitely looking forward to talking about those. One thing that I also want to talk about is the fact that we got early review copies of Livewire issue 1, written by Vita Ayala with art by um,
Raul Allen and Patricia Martin.
yeah, in my head I wanted to flip their names around and I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't get it back right. Um, but yeah, Raul Allen and Patricia Martin are doing the art, and they're the ones that did Secret Weapons, which is honestly up there with the Valiant as one of the best things that modern Valiant has published. So I love that we're getting more Livewire. I love that it's them doing it. And I mean, what did you think? Without, obviously this is one we're definitely not going to spoil because it hasn't come out yet, but without spoiling anything, I mean, how did you feel about it, Josh?
I loved it. I wrote a review of it. That's up on our Geekery, also available on the Get Valiant Facebook page or Twitter page. To me, like I felt like Vita. totally understands the characters, totally gets the cast, and was able to make like the world around Livewire interesting. Regardless of your feelings of Harbinger Wars 2, there's a lot of like baggage on her shoulders coming out of it. And I just think that like it was for as far as the first issue goes, it was handled really, really well. I think that the art certainly helps too, because given that's Livewire, I love Raul Allen's work with Patricia Martin. That's the correct way to pronounce it. I mispronounced it earlier. I just thought it was pretty much a flawless issue. I really enjoyed it a lot. It's got me really excited for the rest of the series too. I mean, I guess it's been bumped up to ongoing, so I'm excited for the ongoing. How many issues that is, I don't know. But one thing I had told a couple people that I was chatting with earlier about it was that my hopes have been very high for this series, and it's nice that having high hopes, they were met, and I had no disappointments after reading it. That's all I'll say. Without
So
going into it, because we probably have some time, like a month or so before it comes out.
yeah, yeah, we do have like a month, and the biggest thing for me going into it is, I always try when I really want to look forward to something, when something's exciting to me on the horizon, I try really hard not to get myself worked up because I don't want to be let down. You know what I mean? So it's been really hard not to get like super worked up because any fans of Get Valiant who've been listening to us for a long time will remember back in our early days when we were first starting this podcast, we were talking about wanting to see a Livewire solo series, and when we got super excited when Secret Weapons happened. Obviously, that was really good, but the fact that we're now finally getting a Livewire book is awesome. And yeah, so my hopes were a lot higher than I usually let them get for most things, and this book still exceeded my expectations.
Yeah,
Um, I cannot overstate how much I love this book. It is a perfect number one issue. This is like it felt like a very natural extension of actually Secret Weapons. It had ramifications and it's not like it ignored. It didn't ignore Harbinger Wars 2, obviously. It couldn't in a Livewire book right now, but I felt like it was a natural extension of Secret Weapons more than anything, especially with the art. And it felt like it was a Livewire book. This isn't a book with Livewire in it. This isn't a Secret Weapons book because that was still not a Livewire book. That was a book about all those characters. This is a Livewire book through and through, and I could not be happier about it. Um, I can't wait till it actually comes out and we can talk more. And I can't wait until we, get into the series.
I totally agree with that. And one thing that's nice too is that I feel like Vita knocked it out of the park. As far as like her Valiant writing debut, she totally understands the character. She gets the universe. She understands like what the stakes are with Livewire. It's an excellent issue. It'll be really exciting to see what people think about this when it comes out. Because I do think that this is one of those books. It's one of the newer books with the newer Valiant regime or whatever you want to call it. And I just think that like if this is a book that those guys put together, if this is something that Joe Illidge and Mel and Carl Ballers put together, they did a good job. They did a
Yeah.
really good job on this. So
Yeah. If they're the ones that brought Vita in and helped her develop her ideas and whatever, um, I mean, yeah, I, 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 I'm extremely excited for the future of Valiant if this is any indication of what we're going to be getting moving forward. I think that um, I don't know. Let's actually talk about Chris P. Bacon is saying Vita's pronoun is they, there. I've heard that, and I do try to say they and their when referring to Vita. If I slip up, I apologize.
yeah,
Um,
I try to use just her name when I speak about Vita, and
yeah,
it's
you
I
just
think
did it again, Josh.
yeah I slip naturally. I think where it's just like it's hard. It's hard to try to update your vocabulary, how you speak, with the way the world is nowadays. But I actually try to, just because if that's what someone wants, if that's how someone feels comfortable, I do it. So if at any point I've referred to Vita is something different, I do apologize. I don't know if
Yeah.
she listens. Probably doesn't. I see. I just did it again. I didn't mean to. I said,
Yep.
"Yep." So
No,
anyway,
it's yeah. No,
art.
if we both are on the same page. If either of us slip up with the pronoun, it's not
Yeah.
intentional, and we definitely apologize in advance.
Yep.
Um, but we have every intention of being respectful of people's wishes of how they want to be treated, and I
Oh
don't see
yeah.
any reason to act any differently than that. Um, but anyway, yeah. Regardless, Vita is clearly an amazing writer. If this first issue of Livewire is any indication of their writing ability, because yeah, absolutely phenomenal. But anyway, we do have two really exciting books for me to talk about. I'm really looking forward to talking about the two books we have to review, which, like I said before, Ninja King number 13, Bloodshot Rising Spirit number 1. Um, as long as you're cool with it, Josh, I'd like to kind of go in that order.
Sure.
Um, so Ninja K13, this is, like I said before, the next to last issue of the series. Um, I do. So one thing that I've seen in on Facebook and some other places is some comments about the art in this series. A friend of mine that I've gotten into reading a few Valiant titles has been reading this book and has really enjoyed it. And he said he's still enjoying the story, but with this arc, he's having a really hard time with the art. And I think that like the first issue of this run with Roberto Del Torre on art, I was really happy with it. I thought it really worked. He really like highlighted the part of the pieces of his style that fit the character. But I feel like with slightly with the previous issue and more so with this issue, we're just kind of getting back to that really dark, gritty feel that he has, and it doesn't. It's just not doing it for me. The story's still great, but the art's just not.
I agree, and I'm usually a person that's very. I always feel like I need to defend Roberto's style. Art's subjective. Everybody's got their taste. I
Yeah,
like his taste on so many things he's done prior, and I still think like the actual quality of his art is good. It's just too dark for like what you're seeing here.
yeah,
So I mean, like, I get people's arguments on it. As much as I like his art, I totally get it. There are times when I've been reading this particular issue and the issue prior where I just thought, I can't tell what the hell's going on. I mean, like, I can because of like the dialogue and how the story's flowing and I'm seeing like the events. But just like if you were to look at that panel sometimes, as any of the panels, really, sometimes it's just like, what am I looking at?
yeah.
Like
There
it's
were
just,
there were a few times where I had to like there were some like 3 or 4 panel sequences where I would sit there and just have to go over them again and again and again just to try to understand what was happening. And that's a really like like you said, art is subjective, but I think one of the most objective things about sequential art is that it needs to flow well and communicate the story as well as can be accomplished visually. And I don't think that expectation was met in this issue. Um, it's not like the worst thing ever, but you know, it's certainly not what we've seen with previous artists on this title.
yeah. You know what though? Like one thing I do think about though is that like I've been so incredibly happy with this run overall
Yeah,
that this art is like maybe my least favorite thing about the entire run. I don't hate that. I don't hate Roberto's style. It's
yeah,
just not as good as it's been in previous works that he's done. But I mean, like, you know, I can overlook that. It doesn't ruin my enjoyment because the story is still really good. And I thought that the story here was great. The big fight between Ninjak and the dying one who's still possessing the body of the Eternal Warrior. It was excellent. It just went together so well. It seems like everything, like the fallout of Harbinger Wars 2, is really felt here. Uh, I mean, we spoil things, so I mean, like, I just thought like it was great that like MI6 kind of came collecting a bit. Like they want Livewire so bad that they were like, "We're not helping you, Ninjak. You're on your own." And then at the end, it was like, he had to fight them after taking care of Galad. So I just thought, like writing wise, like the writing has still just been so top notch. I think that I honestly think that when this series wraps up next month, My feelings on this might be that this is one of the best Valiant runs I've ever read. If the last issue is anything like the 13 prior to it, that's my thought. Um,
So, I mean, what I would say to that is that I would put this with Wrath of the Eternal Warrior.
oh yeah, same amount
That
of
book
fun.
That book is a really good book. It has its ups and downs. It's not perfect, but overall, as a 14 issue run, which they both are, it's amazing and easily something that I would recommend. Like, oh, you want to know who Galad is as a character and like what he's all about? Go pick up Wrath of the Eternal Warrior, read the whole run, and it's not that much to read, and you will totally understand Galad better than anything else I could tell you to read. And I would say the same thing about I mean, obviously, Matt Kint's Ninjak run was extremely informative about the character and a really good way to get to know the character. But I think that looking at this Ninja K series from Christos Gage is, I don't know, man. It's as much as I love Ninjak, I think Ninja K is even better.
The one thing I think though is that this isn't going to wrap up. I mean, they're not going to wrap up everything with the Jonin by the next issue. That would just be really like weird pacing. Um, like as far as like that though, I mean, like I think that that does leave a door open to the next writer if they want to go down that road and be like, okay, like here was something that was going on with the previous run. It ended abruptly. Let's work on that. That's something Valiant can build on. They can show the Jonin training a bunch of fucking dudes, that are badass, and then it's another thing for Ninja to deal with, and maybe some of those people are just a little bit better than like the average bad guy. So I don't know. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves on that, or at least I am. But this was a great issue. As far as my score on it, it's kind of hard to score it because I love this book, man, so much. But the art, it has to be recognized in the score. I just think that, like, for me, like, the writing would be a five. But the art to me, like, as much as I even like Roberto De La Torre, like, I'd have to score this low just because I do think there are times where you're just like, it's kind of confusing to even look at it. So my score on this is going to be a four, and I think that's probably being a little generous just because I do like the book so much. I mean, like the overall enjoyment of it is great, but man, like I was actually kind of excited for Roberto De La Torre to do the art, but after seeing these three issues of it, I just think it's not that great, man. Like this is not a good fit.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
you
and I
put him
think
on
that that's
Shadow Man, if you put him on Shadow Man hanging out in the dead side, I think that's a little different. That's a better place for his art, but
yeah.
that's just me.
Well, and it's like what they did with those Exo Manowar issues where they had him just do those like space sequences and the really epic shit. That was amazing.
And those were colorful though. Like those actual pages just had a lot of like they were pretty vibrant. And so I'm not sure
They
like
were.
if the knock is really on his art or if it's on the coloring, but I feel like it's not great. So I'm gonna go
Yeah.
with like his art.
So my feeling on it, I actually end up just a touch higher than you at a 4.25 because I think that I'm having the same issue as you, but I think that you know, the moments when the art took me out of the story, yeah, that sucked, and that's part of what's bringing the score down for me. But if I can just look at the story as a whole and acknowledge the positive qualities of the art, because it's obvious Roberto De La Torre is not a terrible artist by any stretch of the imagination.
Nope.
Um, so acknowledging the positive qualities that are there in the art, because there is a lot of good kinetic motion. The fight scenes look really epic. Um, there's a lot of positive things. And obviously, the writing, I agree with you. Total five on that. Absolutely. The writing is phenomenal here. I'm so like I'm one of the things that I love most about Bloodshot Reborn is how much it kind of played with who Bloodshot is as a character and made some changes to it, made some tweaks. And that's what I feel like is happening right now with Ninjak in this book is we're seeing him walk away from MI6 because of the choices that he's made because he has a code, and he's got enough honor to live by that code. And kind of Galad pointed out, you might be switching from one code to another, but that's all we are is the code we live by. And I don't know. That's another thing where Christos Gage is kind of creating something really interesting. He's not closing the door on the character and saying this is who the character has to be. He's actually opening a door and saying this character could become anything. And I think that that's really interesting. And I really hope that we get more Ninjak after this title is done.
All right.
Um, so that's Ninja K13, Bloodshot Rising Spirit #1. Um, I'm sure very few people will be surprised to hear that Bloodshot is my absolute favorite character. Uh, I love him, and I've been very apprehensive about what this series was going to be and how I would feel about it. So, how did you feel about it, Josh?
Oh, well, I thought this was kind of an average issue. Like, at least the first time I read it twice. The first time I read it, and when it was done reading it, I was just kind of like, man, that's it. Like, not like it wasn't like the greatest first issue. And here doing this podcast, we've been here for like so much of Reborn, the beginning of Salvation, Bloodshot USA. I thought like so much of that stuff was great. And I don't know if this was just like, the fault of three people writing it, a sense, but I just thought like it was kind of an average read. Like, I mean, it would be good enough to buy, but it's not something I'm very excited about. I mean, like it'd be in my reading pile regardless, or my buy pile. Um, and I also thought that there was something kind of off about the art. But here's one thing about it that I read it again today before we came on, and I think looking at it as like an action book of sorts, where you're like, oh man, here's like a badass super soldier, or maybe even looking at it like as a superhero book. I think it's like kind of like the wrong way to look at it. And I kind of think if you look at it with a tiny little bit of like a horror approach, like a killing machine out of control, the people who've worked on it are just getting like butchered and shit like that. I think then like the premise picks up a little bit better. So like the second time I read it, I liked it a bit more. But overall, I mean, I thought it was an all right issue. I mean, I like Bloodshot a lot, so I mean, definitely, it's one of those things where like I'd be here for the next issue. And there were some cool moments within the issue. There were some cool pages in it, but like it kind of looked to me like Ken Lashley did like the first couple pages, and then the rest of them were done by like I guess Ryan Wynn who finished it. So it just kind of looked a little off.
So, for me, honestly, like I would say that the art wasn't perfect, but I did like it a lot. And honestly, I have to say that this is probably the best Bloodshot issue I've read since Reborn.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I absolutely loved this issue.
But you know what though? That's cool, man. Because you know what? I think you are like a good measurement of like the character. Okay, so like the biggest Bloodshot fan I know, if he's happy with it, I think it's cool. Like like that's good. And I wish they would have released a little bit of information along with this. So like I got an email today. I'm sure a lot of people who are on Valiant's email list get this stuff. Where like this was like the #1 selling Bloodshot issue in recent history.
in
So
the
like
in the current iteration of Valiant, yeah.
yeah, which is crazy to me, because I would have thought I don't remember like anything like I think like Salvation was like 20ish, and I think like Reborn was like maybe close to 30. I could be wrong, but that's great. I know that there were some really cool shop variants. Valiant itself didn't put out like a billion covers, but they had a lot of shop variants, and I'm sure a lot of people are doing that to get those glass variants, which are awesome. And I heard they're super durable. A couple other thoughts I had on the issue. I like that they did play around with the Angelo persona, you know, and I thought I loved. As much as I try never to get into discussions about any issue that we're going to talk about prior. Like if I see you talking about an issue online, I try not to be like, oh, I want to say these things about it, because I always feel like then like shit, man, like I could have saved that thought for when we're on here. But I love the fact that like he's not a rat. He's not going to snitch anyone out, Like he's still got that mob persona a little bit, Because the thing is, no one really knows, man. Like we don't ultimately know like if it's Ray Garrison. We don't know if it's Angelo Mortelli. We don't know any shit, man. Like that's kind of like the cool thing about a series like this, you know. And I do think there's a lot of cool stuff that they can do with this. I do hope that I think I think really like the next issue will be a better telltale sign of where the series is going because if it's just Kevin working on it and it's just him doing the writing and everything else, that might be a little bit easier, you know, because I don't know what the deal is with Thompson and Nadler. They're not listed on any of the other issues. So 2 and 3
Well,
solicited, they're not listed on.
I'm guessing because in this first issue they were listed as story and Kevin was listed as script. So I'm guessing that they basically came up with a direction and a concept and probably even sketched out an outline for this first issue. And then I imagine that, Kevin came in and picked it up from there. To me, this issue was um it was a ton of fun. There was corny action in it. I love the fact that as a Bloodshot fan, like this issue kind of took me on a journey because it started out with it seeming like, okay, it really is Angelo Mortali that is Bloodshot. And I kind of as I'm reading it, like I'm going through all the stuff from VEI in my head, like, could it really be Angelo Mortali? Does this make sense in continuity? Like, it just was really fun to read that and kind of have those questions and go through the book. And then with the way that it was, and a lot of those Angelo Mortali Bloodshot sequences were really fucking awesome. I took that one splash page and made it my profile picture because I thought it was, even though the art on that page is not the best, and I wish that it was better, it's still really fucking cool. And I thought like those sequences were awesome. The cheesy training montage and he like spits out the bullets. That's so fucking awesome. Like if you're gonna have a character like Bloodshot, that's exactly the kind of shit that you need to throw in that issue. You know what I mean? And like I just thought that was so fucking cool. And then I love him waking up and the memory engram didn't take because they haven't really perfected it yet. And he's like you said, tearing apart the people working on him and they had to kind of like put him down so that they could try to, implant a new memory. And I don't know, man. This was such a fun, awesome, action-packed book with a little bit of I agree, it has a little bit of a horror element to it. Like it was so fucking awesome, dude.
There's a couple panels that really stood out, and one of them that I keep thinking about is the one after he shot in the face a bunch, and then like the next panel is just him with like part of his mouth missing.
Yeah.
It's like is I mean like there was some like cool stuff to it, you know. And again, like I just think the way that I approached my reading of it the second time kind of helped me like get over it a bit where I was like, yeah, you know, like horror stuff, you know, like and I think that even like reading up on stuff today where it was like, you know, like I seen like a lot of people that just thought it was like an average book. I thought it was like a little bit better than average after I was done reading it the second time. So I think for like my score on this, I'm gonna come in a little low than I normally would on a Bloodshot book, but I go about a 3.5 on it. It's got some cool stuff to it, you know. I don't know how much they're gonna change anything, or I don't. I guess not change anything, but I wonder like with the fact that we've had 3 Bloodshot series, how much information about the character are they going to put out there that we haven't seen? I think that'll be like an interesting little um, thought going forward with this. Just like how much more like backstory are they really going to add? Is it just going to be him going on missions, or are there going to be like really interesting tidbits that really you retain after you're done reading this? So
Yeah, I'm expecting it to really explore the early stages of the Bloodshot program or this phase of the Bloodshot program. Um, for me, I mean, it's not going to be any surprise to you that my score is higher than yours. I would come in at a 4.5. I think that the writing is near perfect, not quite there, and the art's a little bit lower quality than that, but still really high quality. I think that there are some pages that are a little bit lacking, and some of the backgrounds and things like that look like they were done kind of quickly, but I think overall this was a really, really well done book. I think that the art, um, it moved really quickly. It was very kinetic, and I think that works for what was going on in this book and for Bloodshot as a character. I think that there were some really badass moments, some iconic moments in this that are perfect for Bloodshot. I don't know, obviously, what was all contributed by who in terms of writing this series or writing this issue, but if the rest of this series is as fun and action packed and gory and brutal as this was, I'm going to be an extremely happy Bloodshot reader.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm kind of in the minority here. I know Jason Falter is saying in the comments that he just doesn't have any interest in reading a prequel, which I mean, I think that's valid. I feel differently, but I definitely think that's valid.
I don't know.
Um,
I mean, to me, like, I think my approach with like Valiant overall is just that I like these characters. So like, whether you give me something where it's like Bloodshot set in the past, Bloodshot in space, fucking Bloodshot on Mars, like I'll read them because I like the characters, you know, like,
I want
and
Bloodshot in
and I
space.
think, and I also think that like regardless of like what the setting is, like say like Jeff Lemire's like pitches like a crazy batshit story, okay, just hypothetical, like where it's like, hey, you know, Bloodshot, he's in the 1800s, he's a cowboy, you know, he's fucking fighting miners and like railroad people and fucking, you know, whoever, cattle barons and shit, you know. If it's done well, I'm gonna enjoy it, you know. If
This is a perfect segue. Chris Bacon is in the live chat, and he's oh no, never mind. It's not his comment. It's Jason Falter again. He's being sarcastic about Warmonger and his great excitement for that book. But I'll tell you what, man, I don't care what characters you use. I mean, Divinity is a good example. That was a new character. I mean, yes, you can say it's based on Solar, but technically it is a new character. We had no idea what was going to be done with it and how it was going to be handled. Turned out to not only be an amazing first series, it gave us an amazing Divinity 2, Divinity 3, Eternity. It's given us the current EXO arc, which I think is the best arc of the current run on EXO. And, all of this stuff came out of Valiant taking a chance on the character Divinity. Savage was really good, and that was another taking a chance. If there's a good story to be told with Warmonger, I want to read it. I don't care it's not Exo Manowar or Shadow Man or Galad or Ivar, who I'd love to read more from. And, I would love another for Quantum and Woody to continue. I'd love another Archer and Armstrong book that's done well. But if the best story pitch that's on the table is a Warmonger story, then I fucking hope that that's the one that they produce.
so here's my thought on that, and I was talking with John Hoosier with Hoodoo TV about this, and it's just like I don't know how the whole pitch game works with Valiant. Does Valiant find writers and they're like, hey, we like your work, you know, how about you pitch Harbinger? How about you pitch Shadow Man or one of these things? And maybe someone was like, I got a better idea. I want to do Warmonger. Okay. Teeny Howard. I think, or Teeny Howard. I don't know how her name is pronounced. That's the
Yeah.
problem with reading names versus hearing them. She's a good writer. Okay. So, like, if her book, Warmonger, is what she wants to do, I'll tell you what, man, it looks exciting. It looks fun. And even though, like, the arc that Kent wrote in Unity with the characters kind of stunk, that doesn't mean that everything using that character is going to be terrible. You know, I mean, like, I don't know, man. Like, to me, it's just like, look at Shadow Man at BEI, okay? We've had a bunch of crappy Shadow Man stuff, right? And, you know, we got to see him in Ninjak a little bit. We saw Rapture. People were like, oh, yeah, he can be written good. People really seem to be on board the current series. Now, that's a legacy character of Valiant. He goes back 25 years, okay? But at the same time, like everything that we've had in this last 6 years, not all of it, but like a good portion of it has been pretty terrible, man. Like, and a lot of times that's someone's first exposure to a character or a first exposure to the company. So if this is like Valiant's way of saying, hey, like we approach someone, they had an awesome take on this character, and it makes the character better, I can't complain. Now, I'd love to have Harbinger. We've had this complaint, our conversation all the time. I'd love to see more with the Immortal Brothers. I'd love to see Harbinger. To me, Harbinger is a huge thing for Valiant. But if someone's got a good story, I'm gonna read it, you know, because I want to be entertained by the books that I'm reading. But I do want to see those other characters, you know. But again, like if they're getting pitches from people and they're not that good, like if they're like, oh, we got like a kind of a ho hum Ivar book pitched to us. We don't know if we want to do it because it's not that exciting, or maybe it's not that good. Or they're like, oh man, we got like someone who wants to do Ninjak, but the current run's so good, and this one would just not that good. Okay. Oh wait, this person got Warmonger, or maybe someone down the line's got Armorines, or someone else has got one of those minor characters that just showed up. The fucking coalition, fought the Jonan's bad guys. If someone wants to do a one shot about some of those bad guys, and it's good, don't deny me that. Don't deny the readers that if it's good. Because here's the thing too, it's like people sit there and bitch and moan all the time, back when Dinesh was with the company, to even now about like the books that stink. Like, oh, listen to the fans. Well, shit, man, they listen to the fans, and we got like a pretty mediocre Harbinger book. There's things like that that happen. Not everything's going to be a hit. You know, if this is a hit, don't hold off on it just because it's Warmonger. That's all I'm saying.
Yep, I completely agree. Couldn't agree more. I I don't know. I just want good stories. That's the whole reason I read comics, and the reason that I've gotten behind Valiant as a company is that on the whole, not maybe not in every single situation, but on the whole, they tend to take risks and try new things to make their stories good. And most of the time, it works out pretty well.
Yeah,
Sometimes it doesn't work out, and it falls flat. And I think that that's just the nature of taking risks.
yeah. And one last thought about that whole thing with Warmonger too is I don't know how long it takes for you to get a new bunch of editors. Okay, but I mean the whole company is pretty much different except for Fred Pierce. Okay, I don't know how long it takes for that to happen, and then be like, okay, and now we're ready to have Exo Man War be monthly again, and we're ready to have all these like classic characters going back from like the 1990s. We're gonna have all of them rolled out real fast. I would love that because I've been the guy on this podcast all the time saying like, give me 15 books a month because there's all these great characters. I hate seeing these characters sit on the shelf, but if they have to do it slowly to keep things going, then they have to. Because I mean, here's the other thought is just that there's no books, you know. So if we're gonna get like a bunch of random characters that are good, I'm all for it, man. But I will say this: I do have hopes next year that we get some more of the like the big guns of Valiant being published. Like there's a lot of stuff that they can do with the psyops. I don't know if a Livewire series and a Faith series are enough to do that. And obviously like Archer and Armstrong and Galad and Ivar, we want to see all those characters, or Neela. Neela's awesome. So if and that's another thing. Like if we got a Neela book where people complain about that and be like, oh, why isn't it Ivar? Like I
Right.
don't
Well, why isn't it Archer and Armstrong? Why
know.
isn't it
Why is
whatever?
it every
Like
book
Jason is
Harbinger?
saying, Jason is saying he wants his tent poles, and like I understand that, but at the same time, like if you want to just read tent pole books, I mean, I would recommend going to Marvel and DC because that's what they do. I don't want I don't want a I don't want to like I said in the comment, I don't want to have five XO books and four Bloodshot books and 12 different Harbinger teams and 1,000 different little stupid things that don't really matter and nobody putting all that much care into. I'd rather have a few books a month that are the best stories that they have to tell, regardless of what characters they feature.
I think what makes it hard is that for in 25 years of having these characters exist, you only have like maybe like 60 issues of Archer and Armstrong. So you don't have a big catalog of things. So it's like when you see the publishing schedules coming out, you're like, come on, man, like I really want to see more Archer and Armstrong. Like if you like Spider-Man, you've got 50 years of history. You've got 800 issues of Amazing Spider-Man to go through. You've got almost 300 issues of Spectacular Spider-Man to go through. Actually, I guess you have more because they renumbered it when they relaunched it. And Web of Spider-Man has so many, and the Ejectiveless Spider-Man book, and Ultimate Spider-Man, and Miles Morales. You've got so much of that stuff that you have a giant catalog. And with us, there's no giant catalog. I mean, there's EXO, but EXO's got like 100 plus issues total, like from going back to the 90s. But it's still not a lot compared to like what modern comics are doing. So like in a way, I do get where you're like, don't deny me Shadow Man. I need more Shadow Man because he's my favorite character. He's my favorite character for 25 years. I don't want Betamax, or something like that. But if they don't have a good book to launch of Shadow Man, but they have a good Betamax, which I don't know if that's going to happen, but
Well, here's a perfect
I'd
example.
read it. If someone has that take and it's good, give it to me.
Right. Well, and a good example, like my example, I don't want 5XO books, four Bloodshot books, whatever. And Jason was, saying that, he's pretty sure I would learn to live with four Bloodshot books. And that's true, but only if they were good. I would get pissed if there were four Bloodshot books, but one of them was decent and the rest of them were less than mediocre because they're putting too much time and energy into producing four iffy books instead of just sitting down and creating the one really stellar Bloodshot book. That's the book that I want to read.
But here's another thing too. Like, let's say that like they were like, "Hey, we're gonna keep Salvation going. We're gonna get a different writer, and they're just gonna continue the future stories going forward of Ray Garrison or who Bloodshot thinks is Ray Garrison and his family into the current Valiant continuity." And then they're like, "Oh, but we're gonna do a second title set in the past." And if the second title set like in the past wasn't good, people would be like, "Oh, why is it we have this and not like something else?" No matter what, people aren't going to be happy. Like
Yeah,
there's always going to be something that like sets off the fan base, and we're all human. We all there's I mean, like again, like I want to see those other characters, but I don't know. I don't want to repeat myself because I've already have.
I just don't want to spend my time wishing for things that I can't have. I would rather spend my time. Oh, and I also don't want to spend my time complaining about things that I don't like. I would much rather spend my time on things that I enjoy, and that's why I do a Valiant podcast because I love Valiant as a company, and they tend to put out really good comics.
I rarely dislike an issue, and I mean I have, and I've said it, but like I try not to even waste my time on it. Like
Yeah.
I've written one. I mean, like even like when it comes to writing reviews, I've only written one bad one, and it's just because I was offered the advanced review, so I was like, well, I better do it. And it's a Bloodshot issue, so
You son of a bitch. Jason brought that up too, you asshole. You guys
Jason's
can just
favorite
never
issue.
let it
So
go.
yeah, Jason's favorite issue, the black issue.
We cannot, this is why we can't have nice things. We can't go a single episode without you assholes. Oh, man. Oh. Oh, criminy. Yeah. I don't know. For me, like the worst thing about this week of books was Roberto de la Torre's art, and it's not like his art is the worst thing in the world. So I don't really feel like there's a lot to complain about. I personally love Bloodshot. Sounds like I probably liked it more than just about anybody else, but that doesn't bother me.
No, that's not true. I read plenty of positive reviews about it today.
Okay.
Like
Well,
people that write reviews, like I mean, like before we did the podcast, I read a bunch, so it's like people like it. Not
awesome.
everyone likes it, but I mean, not everybody likes everything.
Right, right. There are very few things in this world that everybody likes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was a great issue. I can't wait for the next one. I'm really bummed that Ninjak is ending. I would love even if we could get one more arc so we could go out with a different artist, but but I do agree with what you were saying before, Josh, that this as a whole, this Ninja K series is one of the best things that Valiant has done, and it's big shoes for whoever takes up the character next. But as I feel this new Bloodshot series proves, sometimes new blood on a character is the best thing, and you can get some really fun, fresh new stories. Um, but oh man, close to as good as Fist and Steel. Chris Bacon must know our love of the Fist and Steel arc. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, I don't know. Honestly, man, and I know I've said this many, many times, but I only say it if I mean it. I honestly feel like this is a good time to be a Valiant fan. We just got a brand new number one from Bloodshot that I thought was fucking amazing. We're going to be getting a new Livewire number one. She's finally getting her own solo book, and that was
it's
fucking
so
amazing.
good. It's so good.
It was even better. Like I'm gushing over how great I thought that Rising Spirit number one was. Livewire number one was better. Like Bloodshot Rising Spirit number one was awesome. Livewire number one was essentially perfect. Like that was a fucking amazing comic.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you read a comic that good. And next week we've got Quantum and Woody 12 coming out. It's unfortunate that series is ending, but Elliot's been doing really well with it. And then Shadow Man number 9, which again, it sounds like that book's coming to an end, probably because of sales, which is unfortunate. But it's also been really well written, and I'm really excited to see more. I can't wait to not only get the rest of the Shadow Man book, but see what comes next. I want to see fresh new writers like Vita, like Andy Diggle, people that haven't worked in the Valiant universe. Um, Bring them in. Let them, bring their new ideas. Kevin Grievous, another perfect example. You know what, Chris Bacon? Now you're just being mean. He said Rising Spirit wasn't as good as Dead Drop.
Jeez, man.
That's
Someone
that's a that's crossing a line right there.
that's below the belt, man. Below the belt. Go to your corner.
Below the belt. You only get one warning. One more of
Get
those
to
and
the,
you're
get
ejected.
to the point if you keep that shit up.
You never bring up Dead Drop around here. No, I don't know. I love Rising Spirit. Obviously, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I have no problem with anybody disagreeing with me, but I don't know. I suppose we'll wait to next week and we have a couple more books to review and hopefully have some super awesome Vin Diesel Bloodshot picks.
All right.
Signing off, I'm Eric Baumgard,
I'm Josh Rathbun.
and I hope you all stay diesel.
Excelsior.